gracious patrons, I shall tell you by your leaving of the sights we have lined up for this evening. Pyrographic delights beyond believing. By your leave I shall list them all now. By your leave I shall list them all now. Roman candle 640. Water fully 230. Squibs by the 100, firecrackers by the 1,000. But of the rockets, we have only one. Only one. Only one. We've a barrage of bombette, scores of sparkles and scorpiette, Catherine wheels and firecrackers, satin shells and jumping jacks, and many others, many others, many others, many others, far too technical for you. Roman candles 640. Pots of fire 230. Thousands of squibs and firecrackers by the 100, but of the rockets, we have only one. Only one. Only one. With my ramrod and my taper I shall cut the finest caper than the products of my powder. Nothing brighter, nothing louder. You will marvel at the elemental forces I shall tame. Oh, such forces I shall tame. Every flicker, every flame. From the crackers, joyful commotion, and the Benglite, glorious explosion. Catherine wheel, all her grandeur, la Crosetta, careless rapture, fire balloons against the darkness, Roman candles in this darkness. Flames ascend the belt of Judas. Flames ascend the belt of Judas. Little pistols, 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 little pistols are an explosion, inside an explosion, inside an explosion. And the tourbillon, as is tradition, spins central to my exhibition. You will find there's nothing vulgar, just a thankful taste of sulfur. They enliven, they enhearten, they enliven. gods, the gift of fire. From the gods, the gift of fire. Thank Prometheus, who has stolen from the gods the gift of fire. From the gods, the gift of fire. The gift of fire. The gift of fire. From the gods, the gift of fire.
The king's son was going to be married, so there were general rejoicings. He had waited a whole year for his bride, and at last she had arrived.
A princess once dwelt in a palace of snow. The chill of the frostlands was all she had known. Alone there she lived, and alone
At the gate of the castle, the prince was waiting to receive her. He had dreamy violet eyes, and his hair was like fine gold. When he saw her, he sank upon one knee and kissed her hand.
If I with hand unworthy, O sweetest of roses, profane this holy shrine, my gentle sin is this. My lips to blushing pilgrims stand here ready to smooth that roughest touch with tender, tender kiss. Yet lips may serve as hands do for sake of prayer. Then let my prayer be granted, lest faith turn to despair. Yet as my sin is purged, on you 'tis fallen, or trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
And the little princess blushed.
She was like a white rose before, but she is like a red rose now.
For the next 3 days, everybody went about saying,
Red rose, white rose, red rose, white rose, red rose.
King gave orders that the page's salary was to be doubled. As he received no salary at all, this was not of much use to him, but it was considered a great honor and was duly published in the court of press.
When the 3 days were over, the marriage was celebrated. It was a magnificent ceremony, and the bride and bridegroom walked hand in hand under a canopy of purple velvet embroidered with little pearls. Then there was a state banquet, which lasted for 5 hours. The prince and princess sat at the top of the great hall and drank out of a cup of clear crystal. Only true lovers could drink out of this cup, for if false lips touched it, it grew grey and dull and cloudy.
It's quite clear that they love each other, as clear as crystal.
And the king doubled his salary a second time.
The fireworks began to talk to each other.
The world is certainly very beautiful,
cried a little squib.
Just look at those yellow tulips. Why, if they were real crackers, they could not be lovelier. I'm very glad I have travelled. Travel improves the mind wonderfully.
The king's garden is not the world, you foolish squib,
said a big Roman candle.
The world is an enormous place, and it would take you 3 days to see it thoroughly.
Any place you love is the world to you,
exclaimed a pensive Catherine Wheel, who'd been attached to an old deal box in early life and prided herself on her broken heart.
But love is not fashionable anymore. The poets have killed it. They wrote so much about it that nobody believed them, and I am not surprised. True love suffers and is silent. I remember myself once, but it is no matter now. Romance is a thing of the past.
Though romance may be out of fashion, yet I shall cherish at any cost memories of all-consuming passion, the soul of one who has loved and lost. There's no taste for immortal longing, now that such tales have been overdone. Poets think not of those they're wronging, yet they wrong many, and I am one. Romance is dead. Romance is dead. Romance died by a poet's hand, assassinated in the name of art. You cannot hope to understand the suffering of a broken heart. You cannot understand, can't understand the silent suffering, the silent suffering, silent suffering of broken hearts. Poets think that their words are sweeter than mere experience counts for naught. Thus they murder romance with meter, all heedless of the demise they've wrought. Their hearts beat for a strophic setting, or forces Eura neatly turned over Iams and Trochees fretting, their hearts unharrowed, their souls unburned. Romance is dead. Romance is dead. Romance died by a poet's hand, assassinated in the name of art. You cannot hope to understand the suffering of a broken heart. You cannot understand, can't understand the silent suffering, the silent suffering, silent suffering of a broken heart.
Nonsense,
said the Roman candle.
Romance never dies. It's like the moon, and it lives forever. The bride and the bridegroom, for instance, love each other very dearly. I heard all about them this morning from a brown paper cartridge who happened to be staying in the same drawer as myself and knew the latest court news.
At the courts there's so much ado, one could hardly know it all. One could hardly know it all without a sound contact or two. When where to find intrigue or scandal, whether involving king or page, who's embracing, who's enraged, who's become too hard to handle. All this you may learn and more. All this you may learn and more. In the very topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, the topmost row. At the court it is widely known that the prince and princess are, that the prince and princess are, reaping rewards that love has sown. You spend all your lives at home in bottomed rows where rumors fly, that the purest love may die, but attend your candle, Roman, that's what worldly wisdom's for. Now I hope you're reassured. In the very topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, the topmost row, in the very topmost row, the topmost row, the topmost row.
But the Catherine Wheel shook her head.
Romance is dead. Romance is dead.
She was one of those people who think that if you say the same thing over and over a great many times, it becomes true in the end.
Suddenly, a sharp, dry cough was heard, and they all looked round.
It came from a tall, supercilious-looking rocket who was tied to the end of a long stick. He always coughed before he made any observation, so as to attract attention.
Ahem, ahem.
He said, and everybody listened except the poor Catherine Wheel, who was still shaking her head and murmuring,
Romance is dead. Romance is dead.
As soon as there was perfect silence, the rocket coughed a third time and began.
How fortunate it is for the king's son,
he remarked,
that he is to be married on the very day on which I am to be let off. Really, if it had been arranged beforehand, it could not have turned out better for him. But princes are always lucky.
I thought it was quite the other way, and that we were to be let off in the prince's honour.
It may be so with you, indeed. I have no doubt that it is. But with me, it is very different. I am a very remarkable rocket, and come from remarkable parents. My mother was the most celebrated Catherine Wheel of her day, and was renowned for her graceful dancing. When she made her great public appearance, she spun around 19 times before she went out, and each time that she did, so she threw into the air 7 pink stars. She was 3.5 feet in diameter, and made of the very best gunpowder. My father was a rocket like myself, and of French extraction. He flew so high that the people were afraid that he would never come down again. He did, though, for he was of a kindly disposition, and he made a most brilliant descent in a shower of golden rain. The newspapers wrote about his performance in very flattering terms. Indeed, the Court Gazette called him a triumph of pyrotechnic art.
Pyrotechnic. Pyrotechnic, you mean,
said a Bengal light.
I know it is pyrotechnic, for I saw it written on my own canister.
Well, I said pyrotechnic,
answered the rocket in a severe tone of voice, and the Bengal light felt so crushed that he began at once to bully the little squibs in order to show he was still a person of some importance.
I was saying,
continued the rocket.
What was I saying?
You were talking about yourself.
Of course. I knew I was discussing some interesting subject when I was so rudely interrupted. I hate rudeness and bad manners of every kind, for I am extremely sensitive. No one in the whole world is so sensitive as I am.
I'm quite sure of that.
What is a sensitive person?
A person who, because he has corns himself, always treads on other people's toes,
answered the Roman candle in a low whisper, and the cracker nearly exploded with laughter.
Pray, what are you laughing at? I'm not laughing.
I am laughing because I am happy.
That is a very selfish reason. What right do you have to be happy? You should be thinking about others. In fact, you should be thinking about me. I'm always thinking about myself, and I expect everybody else to do the same. That is what is called sympathy. It is a beautiful virtue, and I possess it in a high degree. Suppose, for instance, anything happened to me tonight. What a misfortune that would be for everyone. The prince and the princess would never be happy again. The whole married life would be spoiled, and as for the king, I know he would not get over it. Really, when I begin to reflect on the importance of my position, I'm almost moved to tears.
If you want to give pleasure to others, you better keep yourself dry.
Certainly. That is only common sense.
Common sense, indeed. You forget that I'm very uncommon and very remarkable. Why, anyone can have common sense, provided that they have no imagination. But I have imagination, for I never think of things as they really are. I always think of them as being quite different. As for keeping myself dry, there is evidently no one here who can at all appreciate an emotional nature. Fortunately for myself, I don't care. The only thing that sustains one through life is the consciousness of the immense inferiority of everyone else, and this is a feeling that I have always cultivated. But none of you have any hearts. Here you are, laughing and making merry, just as if the prince and princess have not just been married.
Why not? It is a most joyous occasion.
Soaring up amidst the stars, I greet the world below me. Thank you, royal pyrographer, for all my flight will show me. Bid our earthly life farewell and set it for the heavens. With such glorious tales to tell the fiery twinkling brethren, we'll dance amidst the stars. Amidst the stars. We dance amidst the perfection is ours. Perfection is ours. With the stars, with the stars, with the stars, with the stars, soaring up amidst the stars, I'll greet the world below me. Thank you, royal pyrographer, for all my flight will show. Dancing with the stars, the perfection is all perfection will be among the stars, among the stars, perfection, the stars.
Ah, what a trivial view of life. But it is only what I expected. There is nothing in you. You are hollow and empty. Why, perhaps the prince and princess may go to live in a country where there is a deep river, and perhaps they may only have one son, a little fair boy with violet eyes like the prince himself, and perhaps some day he may go out to walk with his nurse, and perhaps the nurse may go to sleep under a great elder tree, and perhaps the little boy may fall into a deep river and be drowned. What a terrible misfortune! Poor people to lose their only son! It is really too dreadful. I shall never get over it.
And the rocket actually burst into real tears, which flowed down his stick like raindrops and nearly drowned two little beetles who were just thinking of setting up a house together and were looking for a nice dry spot to live in.
He must have a truly romantic nature,
said the Catherine Wheel.
For he weeps when there is nothing to weep about.
And she heaved a deep sigh and thought about the deal box.
So must the prince and princess without their lovely boy share the bitter tear that rinses their souls of every joy, and in a heart romantic a noble sorrow stirs, stung by dispositions antic and common cries of curse. I weep for princely fortune brought low by tragedy. I weep that you'd embodied my heartfelt sympathy, and most of all I'm weeping for weeping as an heart entrusted to my keeping. Oh God, it breaks my heart. Oh God, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. It breaks my very heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. It breaks my very. And where shall they find comfort for all that is now gone? No solace and no slumber, souls forever and unknown. And I for friendship caring am also torn apart. My pain I cannot bear. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. It breaks my very heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. Oh yes, it breaks my heart. It breaks my very. There is no use in crying, it's humbug, nothing more. No testness is for trying, it's humbug, that's for sure. Oh, come now, dry your tears. I cannot dry my tears. My tears. Living star, please me, our robot is blazing. Evening star, please me, our robot is blazing. And yet it breaks my heart, and yet it breaks my heart, and yet it breaks my heart, it breaks my very heart. And yet it breaks my heart, 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 it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart.
But the Roman candle and the Bengal light were quite indignant and kept saying,
Humbug, 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 humbug,
at the top of their voices. They were extremely practical, and whenever they objected to anything, they called it humbug. Then the moon rose like a wonderful silver shield, and the stars began to shine, and a sound of music came from the palace. Then 10 o'clock struck, and then 11, and then 12. And at the last stroke of midnight, everyone came out on the terrace, and the king sent for the royal pyrotechnist.
Anticipation is mixed with libation. This night so remarkable will be splendid. All will be hectic when these pyrotechnics are all set alight, our beliefs suspended. Oh, what an evening!
Look there.
It's starting!
Bright lights take flight, exploding into color. Fireworks are our delight. I want to see another. See, how lucky are we? This royal wedding, best of the century. I wish it could be me.
Look at them soaring.
The sky is all aflame with such uproar in celebration.
Prince and princess together to witness
This wonderful spectacle, great sensation. Oh, what an evening! Bright lights taking flight, exploding into color. Fireworks are our delight. I want to see another. See, how lucky are we? This royal wedding, best of the century. I wish it could be me.
The rocket was so damp with crying that he could not go off at all. The best thing in him was the gunpowder, and that was so wet with tears that it was of no use.
I suppose they are reserving me for some grand occasion?
Said the rocket.
No doubt that is what it means.
And he looked more supercilious than ever.
The next day the workmen came to put everything tidy.
This is evidently a deputation. I will receive them with becoming dignity.
So he put his nose in the air and began to frown severely as if he were thinking about some very important subject. But they took no notice of him at all till they were just going away. Then one of them caught sight of him.
Hello, what a bad rocket.
And he threw him over the wall into the ditch.
Bad rocket? Bad rocket?
He said as he whirled through the air.
Impossible. Grand rocket. That's what the man said. Bad and grand sound very much the same. Indeed, they are often the same.
And he fell into the mud.
It is not comfortable here, but no doubt it is some fashionable watering place, and they have sent me away to recover my health. My nerves are certainly very much shattered, and I require rest.
Then a frog with bright jewelled eyes and a green mottled coat swam up to him.
A new arrival, I see,
said the frog.
Well, after all, there is nothing like mud. The rainy weather, and I'm quite happy. I think it will be a wet afternoon. I'm sure I hope so, but the sky is quite blue and cloudless. What a pity.
Ahem, ahem.
What a delightful voice you have. It is quite like a croak. Croaking is, of course, the most musical sound of the world.
Fiddle on the day when as a tadpole, that very day our little froglet hears, falling upon his tympanic membranes. That's what froglets have in place of your external ears. Here's the song, the sweetest music, the music, ancestral melody, sung by his bullfrogs, sung by the tadpoles, sung by every single frog that there will ever be. Aristophanes, to name but one, spellbound by Apollonius, scores in writing to pin down, for prosperity and more, for pride, for love, for art, for glory. Breke-coax, then swear with pride that never frog did lack. Swear your throat and thorax. Breke-coax, breke-coax, breke-coax. Then swear with pride that never frog did lack. Swear your throat and thorax. Breke-coax, breke-coax, breke-coax. Seconds and all is quiet, the silence falling over both field and mark. Late bird itself asks, is the time nigh yet? Time when all the world attends the sweet song of the frog. He inhales, he pauses, he strikes a pause, and then a starting note feels his voice reverberate. And then another rises and floats, croaking chords crescendo infame, shanalate. And so this choir of amphibians enchant our audience as all inflate our sacks, lifting you out of the quotidian, from allure and humus black, into a state of ataraxia. Breke-coax, breke-coax, breke-coax. Then swear with pride that never frog did lack. Swear your throat and thorax. Breke-coax, breke-coax, breke-coax. Swear with pride that never frog did lack. Swear your throat and thorax. Breke-coax, breke-coax, breke-coax. Coax. Coax. Ribbit, coax, coax. Breke-coax.
full voice, certainly. Well, goodbye. Enjoyed our conversation very much, I assure you.
Conversation indeed. You have talked the whole time yourself. That is not conversation.
Somebody must listen, and I like to do all the talking myself. It saves time and prevents arguments.
But I like arguments.
I hope not. Arguments are extremely vulgar, for everybody in good society holds exactly the same opinion.
And the frog swam away.
You are a very irritating person. And very ill-bred. I hate people who talk about themselves as you do. When one wants to talk about oneself as I do, it is what I call selfishness, and selfishness is the most detestable thing, especially to anyone of my temperament, for I am well known for my sympathetic nature. In fact, you should take example by me. You could not possibly have a better model. Now that you have the chance, you had better avail yourself of it, for I am going back to the court almost immediately. I am a great favourite at court. In fact, the Prince and Princess were married yesterday in my honour. Of course, you know nothing of these matters, for you are a provincial.
And he sank down a little deeper into the mud. After some time, 2 white ducks swam up to him. They had yellow legs and webbed feet, and were considered great beauties on account of their waddle.
Quack, quack, quack. What a curious shape you are.
May we ask, were you born like that, or is it the result of an accident?
It is quite evident that you have always lived in the country. Otherwise you would know who I am. However, I excuse your ignorance. It would be unfair to expect other people to be as remarkable as oneself. You will no doubt be surprised to hear that I can fly up into the sky, and come down in a shower of golden rain.
I don't think much of that.
I cannot see what use it is to anyone.
Now if you could plough the fields like an ox.
Or draw a cart like the horse.
Or look after the sheep like the collie dog.
That would be something.
My good creature, I see that you belong to the lower orders. A person of my position is never useful. We have certain accomplishments, and that is more than sufficient. I have no sympathy myself with industry of any kind, least of all with such industries as you seem to recommend. Indeed, I have always been of the opinion that hard work is simply the refuge of people who have nothing whatever to do.
Well,
said the ducks, who were of a very peaceable disposition and never quarrelled with anyone.
Everybody has different tastes.
I hope at any rate you're not going to take up your residence here.
Oh dear, no. I'm merely a visitor, a distinguished visitor. The fact is that I find this place rather tedious. There is neither society here nor solitude. In fact, it is essentially suburban. I shall probably go back to court, for I know that I am destined to make a sensation to the world.
We had thoughts of entering public life once ourselves.
There are so many things that need reforming.
Indeed, I took the chair at a meeting some time ago.
And we passed resolutions condemning everything that we did not like.
Reforming. Time was island reformation. Reformation, but to no effect at
and they swam away down the stream.
Come back! Come back!
Screamed the rocket.
I have a great deal to say to you.
But the ducks paid no attention to him.
I'm glad they've gone,
he said to himself.
They have decidedly middle-class minds.
And he sank a little deeper still into the mud and began to think about the loneliness of genius, when suddenly a boy in a white smock came running down the bank with a kettle and some sticks.
This must be the deputation,
said the rocket, and he tried to look very dignified.
Hello. Look at this old stick. I wonder how it came here.
Old stick? Impossible! Gold stick! That's what he said. Gold stick is very complimentary. In fact, he mistakes me for one of the court dignitaries.
I'll put it into the fire. It will help boil the kettle.
So he piled the sticks together and put the rocket on top and lit the fire.
This is magnificent,
cried the rocket.
They're going to let me off in broad daylight so that everyone can see me.
Lord, but I'm weary. My eyes are closing nearly. Night walk so dreary. A fire will warm and cheer me. Now shall I douse and boil my kettle? Here will I settle, resting my eyes.
And the boy lay down on the grass and shut his eyes.
The rocket was very damp, so he took a long time to burn. At last, however, the fire caught him.
Now I'm going off,
he cried, and he made himself very stiff and straight.
I know I shall go higher than the stars, much higher than the moon, much higher than the sun. In fact, I shall go so high that...
Fizz, fizz, fizz! And he went straight up into the air.
Hence, hence, firework hence away. Firework hence away, 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 and crown this best of days, and crown this best of days, this best of days, and crown this best of days. O Scythian hills to the May ocean lake, O Scythian hills to the May ocean lake, a speedy flight we'll take. Hence, firework hence away, firework hence away, 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 a speedy flight we'll take, a speedy flight we'll take, a speedy flight we'll take, a speedy flight, a speedy flight we'll take.
The somnus I'll compel his downy bed to leave in silent cell. With noise and light, with noise and light, I will his peace molest. Nor shall he sink again to pleasing rest. To my proud array he grants supplies and seals with sleep the wakeful audience's eyes. Hence, hence, firework hence away. Firework hence away, 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 and crown this best of days, and crown this best of days, this best of days, and crown this best of days. O Scythian hills to the May ocean lake, O Scythian hills to the May ocean lake, a speedy flight will take. Hence, firework hence away, firework hence away, 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 a speedy flight will take, a speedy flight will take, a speedy flight, a speedy flight will take.
But nobody heard him, not even the boy, for he was sound asleep.
Then all that was left of him was the stick.
At last I'm a great sensation, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la, best of 11 nations, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la, my follies incandescent, the joys are effervescent, above the world I sparkle, the workmates are remarkable. To you, we toast in celebration, they make my emulation the greatest gift of all. To you, to you, to you. Excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh rocket remarkable.
His excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh sweet champagne. Champagne's a remarkable beverage.
Rockets reach ascension, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. Nobody pays attention, tra-la-la-la-la-la. For in the war below, now champagne begins to flow. Now a full celebration must sustain our nation. To you, we toast in celebration, leaving this sweet libation, the greatest gift of all.
To you, to you, to you.
Its excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh sparkling sweet champagne.
Its excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh sweet champagne. Champagne's a remarkable beverage.
May live in quiet contentment, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. Still you require refreshment, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. So fill your glass and this'll hop at that royal whistle. Drink till the skies are starlit, or till your nose is scarlet. To you, we toast in celebration, given to its temptation, the greatest gift of all.
To you, to you, to you.
Its excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh sparkling sweet champagne.
Its excellence is undenied, majesty magnified, worthy to be beatified, oh sweet champagne.
I knew I should create a great sensation.
Bye.